like to call the meeting to order, please. Charlotte, will you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Charlotte. Adoption of agenda. Steve, any changes?
None. Move to adopt agenda as posted.
Second.
Any discussion?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Call to the public. I have three requests. First, Harry Klapik.
Mr. President, members of the governing board, Superintendent Zimmerman, thank you very much. My name is Harry Klapik. I am a governing board member of Santa Cruz Valley Unified District 35 in Rio Rico. You all know me. I am also the Santa Cruz County Director for the Arizona School Board Association, and this is the capacity in which I come before you this evening. A few pieces of information and a request. First one is the Arizona School Board Association, unless the new executive director, Dr. Ogle, changes his mind, we will not be providing a first workshop free starting July 1st of this year. We've done it for the last 3 years, but they decided to cut that back. Secondly, we have started the process of a strategic plan for the Arizona School Board Association, and when that finishes, we hope to be able to publish that to our members. Thirdly, I wish to thank those members that have a chance to go to last year's county workshop in Patagonia. And my request is that at that workshop, Nogales has indicated their desire to host this next workshop, the county workshop in October 10th of this year. In order for the district to do that, I think you probably need to have an okay and approve that, and that would probably be on your next board meeting. If you choose to, I would like that on your agenda so I can then go forward. If you choose not to, that's okay. I just need to know at that point to find somebody else to host that event. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Harry. And next, Maria Newman.
Good evening, Mr. Board President, board members, Mr. Superintendent, members of the audience, and fellow colleagues. My name is Maria Newman, and I'm here to speak to you in my capacity as Vice President of the Professional Educators of Nogales, or PEN, about a few things that are currently in the forefront of PEN members' minds. First, I would like to remind you that PEN and the AEA, Arizona Educators Association, excuse me, have strived to improve the working conditions of all educators in Arizona, not just our members. On Friday, February the 4th, 2012, the Arizona Superior Court ruled in favor of teachers, education support employees, and other members of the Arizona State Retirement System, reversing legislation that reduces each employee's salary by hundreds of dollars and diverted the funds to the state's budget. Although this lawsuit, excuse me, I have a little cold today. Although this lawsuit was filed on behalf of AEA's members, it benefited all those individuals who pay into the ASRS, including our police officers, firefighters, and so on. Secondly, there are more than a few bad bills regarding educators moving through the legislative process this week. AEA is opposed to these bills, which, if passed, pose more and more restrictions on public educators and students as well. Many of PEN's representatives at various sites have been keeping all educators informed, whether they are PEN members or not. On the local NUSD level, PEN is often asked to sit in on grievances as an impartial party, whether an educator is a PEN member or not. Site representatives are often asked to sit in on many of NUSD's committees, as AEA offers its own professional development trainees on such issues as grievances, interest-based negotiations, teacher evaluation, curriculum and instruction, and much more. Many sites look to PEN members as part of their leadership teams. And as these individuals develop their skills, they assume leadership roles in this district. In fact, many current administrators were members of Penn early in their careers. Our members each spring raise monies for our scholarship fund. This money is then given out in the form of scholarships to graduating Nogales High School students. We give to those who are in need at our sites as well as in the district by donating hours, and we donated funds this year towards the district holiday meal in December to those in need. We do this regardless whether they are Penn members or not. This is what is meant by being a family. Now, it is almost that time of year again to begin IBN meetings. Penn does not want this committee to begin meeting during the month of May or later. We would like the district administration to begin setting up a timeline for the IBN committee to meet, beginning in the month of March if possible. When Penn first sat in at the first IBN meeting, we negotiated the one-time distribution of 1/2 of the EduJobs bill last February, in which all full-time employees of the district received an $888 one-time check. Penn membership does not mean that you are part of a clique or that you only work to gain for yourself. Many Penn members and site representatives work to help create a better work environment for all educators at all sites throughout the year. We take the time to speak to all educators, one-on-one, members or not, regarding specific issues and concerns. When we begin our negotiations, the Penn representatives truly believe we represent the needs of all certified staff. We all put our hearts and souls into teaching. Contrary to popular opinion, we know that we will never get rich by entering the teaching profession. However, that does not preclude the fact that we also need to have a livable wage. Many educators have already lost their homes in the past few years. Gas continues to climb, as well as food prices, utilities, even the cost of entertainment. Thank you for your time, and I hope all of you have a happy Friendship Day or Valentine's Day tomorrow.
Next, Cynthia Colbert.
Mr. President, board members, Mr. Superintendent, colleagues, and members of the public, my name is Cynthia Colbert. I work for Student Services as a gifted teacher, elementary level, but tonight I come before you as a concerned citizen. I would just like to remind the board and perhaps give you a little caution about releasing student information to the public. Because of the FERPA law, and FERPA, for those of you that don't know, is the Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act in the United States. And if you look at your big board packet on page 77, there's probably a really blatant violation of FERPA law. So I'd just like to give you a caution about releasing student information to the public, because if I wasn't the wonderful person that I am, I could really make use of this student information. So I would just like to give you a little caution about what information you release to the public, since I went online on the district website and downloaded it. Thank you.
Thank you. Those are the only written requests we have. Any other requests to speak? If not, we will move on to governing board updates. Marcy?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I attended the Annie production at Challenger Elementary School, and I want to say that it was a very fine performance, very fine students over there that were very creative. It's a very difficult play to produce, and I thought that Mrs. Vasquez, please send my congratulations to the students and the teachers that were involved. It was very, very nice. I've attended a lot of fine arts performances in the district, but Annie was a very, very good play. It was just wonderful. The lead actor was terrific, and it was fine to see the talent that we have. And when I've been going around, Superintendent Zimmerman, I think that maybe you should consider maybe having one school just be a model for fine arts and send all of those students there, because we got a lot of gifted fine arts students in the various aspects of that particular art, and I think that maybe parents would want to send them so we could keep all the instructors in one school and keep the talents there, because we have very fortunate with that. I was supposed to attend the ASBO conference in Tempe again, which Carla Soto was the chairperson of that conference, and I understand that the guest speaker was a dynamic speaker, the assistant superintendent for the Arizona Department of Education. I apologize, a family emergency came up, and I asked Mrs. Soto to please see what she could do to have the district, my registration fee be returned to the district, which was $105, and the district will get a credit for next year, so the money did not go to waste. Mr. Chairman, that's all I have.
Thank you. Frank?
I attended a meeting at Wade Carpenter Middle School where Mrs. Montiel invited Mr. and Mrs. Leslie from Green Valley. These are people that are retired now, and they're very interested in helping the community with books, money, and videos, and they're also very interested in letting the kids know that they must read in order to get ahead in this world. And it was very interesting, and the couple was very, very nice, and they were actually really beautiful people. I also attended a meeting this afternoon at Wade Carpenter, sponsored by the Young Audience, and where the Young Audience sponsored Mr. Velas, a local artist from this community, and he showed the kids how to make masks, and in doing so, he taught kids the concept and techniques and color of artistry. And so I also think that we should have more art classes at the elementary. We got to start classes at the elementary because, you know, our culture has many, many beautiful artists. So I think we ought to start this at our lower level. Thank you.
Thank you, Frank. Hector?
No problem, Mr. Chairman.
Charlotte?
I didn't go to any educational meetings, but I did attend the last few basketball games for the Nogales High School varsity team and JV teams over the last few weeks. And I'd like to commend the players for their professionalism in playing, keeping their cool when they're in disagreement with refs. The boys play extremely well. I'm very, very proud of them, and I love watching them play.
Great. Thank you. And we do wish them, and I guess there are some wrestling kids going to state as well, so we wish them all good luck in their athletic endeavors. Superintendent's report.
Okay, the first item is setting of a transportation study session. We are looking at March 29th. We wanted to check your availability. We had a discussion today with Citizens Auto Stage. They would be standing before you and doing a presentation based upon the amount of routes, the amount of students that they service. Basically, what we want to get down to is before you start honoring their contract, I'm sure you're going to have questions about the efficiency and the effectiveness of those routes. As you know, that over the last few years, we have heard that sometimes we see our routes where they are not near capacity, and why we could not consolidate those routes. And we'd like to be able to put up our boundaries up on the screen, and basically show you where our kids are at and why we have the routes that we have. And between you as members of the board and the people that are watching it, maybe we can come up with some solutions as to how we can become more effective and efficient and continue to decrease the amount of monies that we are spending with Citizens Auto Stage. So we are looking at the 29th.
At what time, Superintendent?
5:30 tends to be a time where you folks are available.
That's a Thursday night?
It's a Thursday night, and we really tried to look at Monday nights, but there just was too many conflicts. So if not, you can throw out some other dates. It doesn't have to be even that night. We can do it any night.
March 29th seems fine on my calendar.
So I think it'll be a very informative. I know that Mr. Para is already preparing for that, and we are actually meeting on Wednesday with citizens. So let's plan for the 29th if something comes up. The next one is what I really enjoy about doing the superintendent's report. We have a student who graduated, who's now a junior at Harvard. And so she wrote me a letter, and I can't capture it any better than the way she had written it. But I'm going to try my best. She's very proud to have graduated from Nogales and the quality education that she received here. And as a result of that, and she puts a lot of statistics in her letter, but basically what she wants to do is she wants to come back to the community in the summer and do a student leadership summit where it would be her and a handful of other graduates, people from Harvard, people who have graduated from here that might be in other universities, and come here. And she presented a budget to me. There are some things we certainly could probably absorb, but the biggest cost was a discussion that I had with County Superintendent Alfredo Velasquez about funding traveling and things like that they're willing to do. The expense is very, very nominal. I think many of them may be staying at Lisa Montiel's house, so I don't think there's going to be much expense incurred at all. Maybe some copying and some meals, which we think we can get from Southwest Food. So she would like to come in June. It's going to be a county-wide. She has developed an application. She has not locked in the date yet because she has some other things that she has to figure out in terms of the other individuals. But what I like about it, it sort of piggybacks on the program that we had with the senior projects. The whole premise, I believe, with the projects is kids to give back in their senior year and things that they can do for the community, but to have someone leave and then want to come back and target individuals that might be thinking about going to college and pushing the issue about how important it is to get higher education, I think is a very good thing. So I want to let you know that, but more importantly, just I think it's nice for the community to see that we do have some students that do want to come back and make a difference. Okay?
Can I ask you a question? Does she want to gear her leadership summit to a particular grade group? Is it?
Thank you. She's actually, in order to get into a working relationship with the county and fixing her budget, we are extending it to Rio Rico students. We are extending it to Patagonia, Little Red, our high school, NHS, and our 2 middle schools. And she has a number attached, and really, she's not totally, I know she has she's carrying a pretty heavy load of classes right now, but she's also still trying to do all this. But I gotta tell you, she's very organized, and as soon as we get a little bit closer, we'll give you a little more detail. She's already done the application, and the selection process is something she's working on. But the main reason isn't just to tell you about the program. I just think it's great to see if somebody wants to come back to Nogales during their summer and do anything that's going to promote leadership and further their education.
Mr. Chairman, may I ask a question or make a comment? Thank you. Superintendent Zimmerman, as a lead-in to what this young lady, Greta, wants to do here, which is, I think, is sharing everything that she learned, not only of our community, but also learning what she is at this Ivy League school. But I think it would behoove us not, since she wants to put that underlying emphasis on higher education, we would be remiss when you go to Boston if you don't make some kind of arrangements with her to take the kids over to Harvard and show them a tour. So
She's already volunteered. She's already volunteered to do that. You want to know how ironic that is?
Okay.
I got the phone call from NSBA the day that she was visiting with me. I let her sit in on the conversation.
Okay. So you will be touring there at
Yes.
Harvard with her?
Oh yeah, she is so willing to do that.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just wanted
Good question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Next item, Caroline Hernandez. Is that you, Tim, or Judith?
Good afternoon, Mr. President, board members and guests. We're here to present a recognition to our cheerleading coach, Caroline Hernandez. And Mr. Colgate is going to tell you a little bit about the recognition that she received.
Thank you. Thank you, Board, Mr. Superintendent. I want to thank everybody for allowing us to come here and recognize something that's very special. Every once in a while, a school district is blessed with something very special. And Nogales Unified School District has had that for 30 years. And I'm very proud of the fact that Miss Carolyn Shortcake Hernandez has won the National Coach of the Year award. This award is only given out to 20 coaches throughout the entire nation for different sports. And I'd like Ms. Hernandez to come down here. I'm sure she's going to say a few words. But before I go and turn the mic over to the very deserving individual here, I do want to say what a great honor it's been to be the athletic director with her as a cheer coach, knowing that we're going to have the best programs in the state and now obviously in the nation. And it has been a great pleasure and a great honor, and brings great honor to our school. And now when people look down that list of National Coaches of the Year, they will now see Nogales on that list, which is fantastic. So once again, with the, if you count this overall state championship, the last 2 years, we're talking 14 straight state championships in one fashion or another. So we also want to thank the cheerleaders for coming and supporting. And now I'm going to turn the mic over to Mrs. Carolyn Shortcake Hernandez, National Coach of the Year.
Thank you. First of all, I want to thank Tim for nominating me. I was a total surprise when this all came about. I was in Kansas visiting my son and daughter-in-law, my granddaughter, when Tim called, and I thought maybe something had happened here at home with one of the cheerleaders. And so he said, no, I just can't hold it in any longer. I need to let you know that I had nominated you for Coach of the Year, for the National Coach of the Year, and you received it. So it was quite a surprise and a wonderful honor. But over my 28 years of coaching the cheerleaders here at the high school, I've had very, very many talented young men and women, and that's what makes me successful. So, and I appreciate the administration's support, and the parents of the cheerleaders have always been wonderful, and I just want to thank everyone for this great honor. Thank you.
Well, we were
Mrs.
just told
was
that,
on your first team?
Yes. She was a freshman. She made the varsity team as a freshman. And she was on my very first cheer squad.
What about Mrs. Sanchez, Dina Sanchez? Can she still jump?
On my cheer team also.
Why are you always calling Dina out?
so as we can see, she's touched the lives of many members of our community in a very positive way. I just want to say that the AIA is receiving the plaque from the National Federation, and they will be honoring her at a ceremony sometime in the spring. They haven't designated where they're going to have it at yet, but they will be honoring her there. They did recognize her at the state championships this past weekend, where our stunt and cheer team placed second, our dancers placed second, and our partner stunt placed second. But when you added all those points together, they were the overall state champions and received the big trophy for being the overall state champions for Division I, which is fantastic. Just another feather in the cap there. But I just want to let everybody know that they will be recognizing her again and getting her plaque sometime in the spring. The AIA will let everybody know. Okay, so thank you very much for letting us
stay
do
there,
this.
Tim. I want to read something to you. I can't tell you the name because I sent the email to this individual and I didn't get permission to read it, but I'm not going to say the name. But this came today was addressed to me today, Monday, February 13th at 12:32 p.m. Sir, please excuse me for using this email to make a comment about your sports program. And I'm like, oh, please be positive. I am proud to be an Apache. I went to the basketball game at Amphi on Friday night. As the fans for the other team shouted displeasure with the refs, it reminds me that our athletic director reminds our fans at the beginning of every game not to do this before all of our home games. Let the refs do, you probably got it memorized, but let the refs ref and enjoy the game, let the kids play type of a thing. I was sitting right, he stands up there, he got it down, and let the players play and let the refs do whatever they're going to do. I was sitting right behind the scorekeepers. Next to me was a very attractive older lady. And I'm like, okay, now what? She told me she was a cheerleader for Amphi back in the 50s. After watching our cheerleaders and theirs, she leaned over to me and said, I'm embarrassed. She couldn't help but notice how enthusiastic and professional that the Nogales cheerleaders were. I should add that the basketball team played exceptionally well, but couldn't seem to buy a basket in the last 2 minutes. Sorry, Bombi, here in the audience, but you know, it is what it is. You guys couldn't buy a basket. Hence, they fell a little short against another very, very good team. Again, I am proud to be an Apache. It's nice to get emails like that. Thank you. Item E, we have implemented a policy committee. We basically have about 14 people on this team, and you know we have to. I'm sorry, D, because I already had that. I'm sorry. Thank you, Joel. Please come on up.
Good evening, governing board members. Ms. Fontes and I would like. Sorry, you want this side? Would just like to present some quick data. I know 4 years ago, you allowed us to create a couple programs down at Pearson, be it a CTE law program that didn't quite make it, but we're still trying to push it again for next year. But we have the nursing program at Pearson. Currently, we have 17 young men and women this year, so I say men because there are 3 young men and they're doing very well. Last year's results for the state testing was above the average in Arizona for our class. 11 students, of the 11 students that tested, 91% of them passed the first time written and 82 with the skills. 82 was compared to 78 in the state and 91 was compared to 90 in the state. And the Arizona Board of Nursing sent us this letter, which I forwarded to Mr. Zimmerman when we did receive it, saying congratulations to our program. So this is exactly what we're trying to incorporate, not only at Pearson, but I know that we're doing the same thing with all the CTE programs at Nogales High School. But it's the 21st century skills of collaboration, critical thinking. Now, if I remember the 4 C's, it would also be communication, which I just forgot. And as, yeah, well, I can't remember the 4th one. See, I can't even remember. I'm just like that guy over there. Nevertheless, thank you, Mr. Parker. It will come to me after Millie starts talking. But we are implementing that, and we are implementing the standards for our students, and we're trying to get more students in there because I presented last spring telling you that 75% of the students nationwide are not going on to universities. So this is a very important class, and I wanted to let you as a board know, thank you, not only from us, but from the students and from these 10 students that did receive their CNA certificates, compliments of the school board.
Thank you. And going along with our mission in career and technical education, we're right in tune with the program of studies, which is the new focus that the president wants us to face with
being accountable with rigorous academic skills that our students need to be prepared for. So our programs need to prepare our students for college ready and career ready. So we are very in tuned in teaching the reading, writing, and math across the curriculum like we have always done. And now the whole state is focusing our CT, career and technical education programs towards program of studies, which we need to also find ways on how to dual enroll and give those students an opportunity for higher education starting at the high school level. So we're very proud that our students are getting prepared to do this, and they're showing that they can do it, and they will be continuing to be successful. And I also want to take the opportunity to thank you very much for supporting the programs, our career and technical education programs. Thank you.
Thank you.
See, it's always good to bring somebody, the other 4C was career awareness. Thank you.
Oh, is that what it
Thank
was?
you.
Mr. Chairman, may I ask a question?
Go ahead.
Mr. Kramer, how do you get your program to go ahead and expand its offerings? Or are you just going to limit it to that one offering?
Thank you, Dr. Verona. It's been, we've discussed this. I know Ms. Fontes, I know Mr. Potter and I have chatted about this as well. We would certainly like to start moving forward if we can, because we've looked in it and we've researched it, maybe creating a JTED for our students in this district. We have a JTED at a neighboring district that I know Mr. Klapek and I were proponents of that. And with the JTED, we can further expand more opportunities like this for the students. Dr. Verona, I think you and I attended a presentation from a company that's coming in, and they were saying the same thing at that presentation, that they would like to be piloting and programming more classes with our students. So if we could get a JTED going in our district, we could expand. I think, Ms. Fuentes, we figured about $500,000, $500,000 based on $5 per $100,000 of home. So that appraised value. So, Dr. Verona, answer your question, that's what it would take. But we are one of the few districts that does not have a JTED currently, and I think that we need to expand upon that based on what Ms. Fontes said.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
May I? Okay. The next item, item E, Policy Committee Update. Our policies are current. However, we have felt that there might be a need to put together a committee to go through all of our policies. Now, if you've ever seen what our policies look like, they usually come in these big binders, 2 binders about this thick, covering whether it's student services, human resources, finance. It covers just about everything. And it seems that every time we look at these policies, we end up finding a way that maybe they don't fit our district and what we're currently doing. So we put together a committee largely of administrators. We would welcome any board member that would like to sit in on it. And it is going to be this Thursday. It's going to be an all-day thing. If you ever sat through a policy revision at ASBA, they can go for 2 days because you read a lot of policies. And we're sort of going to do the same thing. The gentleman that has done it for years at the Arizona School Board Association is Jim Deaton. And I'm sort of going to be like Jim Deaton. We're going to go through these policies, and as long as they are not going against statute, then they will support recommendations and changes that we make. When we are done, we will bring those to you if we feel like there might be some needs to change some policies, maybe tweak them the way that we're currently doing business. And for the most part, our policies have been approved by ASBA, but it's going to be a long day, but for some, it's just a good exercise. Not everybody knows the rule book. They know the rule book within their own discipline. I would say that Maida may know her section very well, but may not know the section that Angel does. So it's a very good opportunity for people to know what rule book we have, because it is all cross-referenced with the Arizona Revised Statute. So it is going to be this Thursday beginning at 8, and it'll go all the way through the late afternoon. Moving forward, letter F was stolen by Maria Newman. I'm going to read a quick email. This email, and because it seems like every month I'm giving you a little bit of information to consider when we get ready to start doing our budget study sessions, but this was dated last week. Today, a Maricopa County Superior Court judge ruled that the law changing the ASRS contribution rate from the prior equal rate for employer and employee to the new system with the employer paying 47, the employee paying 53 is unconstitutional. Unless the state appeals and wins the appeal, the contribution rate must return to an equal rate for both the employer and the employee. And in case you're wondering what that looks like, that's about $250,000. Later on that same day, because everybody must have got that email, I had an email from the retirement system. I'm just going to read the last paragraph, which is, however, they cited everything else. However, this does not automatically mean that the rate will revert now to 50-50. The state of Arizona has an option to appeal, and no direction has been given to the ASRS to revert back to that 50-50 split at this time. We are awaiting further direction regarding the final judgment and the appeal decision. So just give you a little more idea as we talk about enrollment and what that looks, how that translates into revenues or lack of revenues, and the potential loss that we might have next year just with the retirement system. You can see that there are some things that we'll have to consider that are going to be on the negative side. Okay. And the last item is G. If there's any questions, it's student activities and auxiliary operations.
Okay. Moving on, item 5, information and discussion items. A, teacher evaluation update. Mr. Zimmerman?
Coming right up. Is Angel here as well? Or why don't you come on up and
She
join
is.
her?
Good evening, Mr. President, members of the board, Mr. Zimmerman, and members of the audience. We have a quick update on our last meeting. We had an all-day work session on January 31st from 8 to 2:30 p.m. And the committee did a lot of work that day. We made a lot of progress that day, and I did a quick sheet to all of you in your packet just to highlight some of the things that we've discussed and come to conclusion on. That day, the previous meeting, we had already come up with the goal of the evaluation instrument, and it's there. Our goal is to enhance and improve student learning by using the evaluation instrument and data to improve teacher and principal performance. So that was the goal of the committee for this instrument. Although the principal evaluation committee has not yet met, we hope to have that started this week. The second thing that we decided, and I think all of you saw the different pie charts that the state gives you as ideas, the committee decided that day that the way that we would distribute the data would be that 33% of the 100% is going to be data-driven, and 67% will be teacher performance-driven. So that will be for both Group A and Group B teachers. We also had some discussions about Group A and Group B teachers. And just to give you an idea, Group A teachers are those teachers for which there are multiple sources of classroom-level data. That means like Ames or DIBELS, Azella, other classroom-specific level data. And Group B teachers are those teachers for which there's no or very limited classroom-level data. So what's going to happen is with Group B teachers, the 33% that's data-driven will be school-level data. So it will, that 33% will be based on how the school did in total, and at least that's what the committee has worked on for now. Although on your sheet I said that we had maybe made some progress on percent of the weight for each data source, we have not. Those two things are still pending. We haven't decided on percentage of weight for each data source. We've identified some classroom level data and school level data. For example, Ames, writing, reading, math, the SAT-10, Azella, and DIBELS. But we've had a lot of discussions about other data sources that we can develop or that are out there and maybe that we can use for the teacher performance evaluation. The difficult thing will be to determine the weight for each data source and also to establish rubrics for all of that. And we think that that will be the really challenging thing for the committee to do. The part that's the teacher performance, which will be the 67%, will be the INTAS standards, and that's what we plan to use. Some of the things that are coming for the committee is that we will have an all-day session again on February 22nd, and we will tentatively have a half-day session on March 3rd as well to keep working on the instrument. Also, a group of us will be attending the summit #2 that will be put on by the state. Ms. Canto did attend the first summit. None of us were able to join her that time, but she did gather a lot of information. And I just want to say on behalf of Angel and I that the committee has been working really hard. We thank Mr. Zimmerman and Mr. Parra for their support, and thank the committee because they've really been putting in, the extra hours working towards getting this performance evaluation tool completed. If you have any questions, or if Ms. Canto would like to add anything.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. Mrs. Zuniga or Mrs. Cantor, what is the reasoning that you chose, and is the reasoning based on research, 33% on data and 67% versus 67% on teacher performance? And what is the definition of teacher performance? Is that an evaluation, or is there other criteria?
Okay, I'm not sure, I may have missed part of the question, but what we're looking at is they gave us a range of criteria that's in the Arizona framework that was approved by the state board, and what we're getting is some indications that some of that will need to go back and be tweaked based upon some other initiatives that are going on. But they gave us a range of things. The minimum for the data, the option was 33%, the maximum was 50%. This is a pretty involved process, and it's quite a paradigm shift. Right now, we're totally 100% off of the teaching standards and teaching performance and measuring and evaluating that way. What we had a lot of back and forth and changed our mind a great deal about which way to go. Was it more towards the 33 or more towards the 50? At this point in time, as we're developing the instrument, we're suggesting the fairest way to wade into such a different way of evaluating would be to go through it and have the 33% for the data and the 67% for the teacher performance. That was what we felt as a committee after considering actually a number of options.
And your definition of teacher performance?
Oh, sorry, I want to add to that.
And I was just going to add to that currently the current system of evaluating teachers is 100% teacher performance, if you will. So we just decide, different standards and how we're going to assess teachers. We go in and we evaluate them. The administrator goes in and does at least, one observation. The new standard requires that at least 33% of that 100% is driven by data that is valid and reliable data. And that new standard, that new framework for measuring teacher effectiveness is now required. It can't all be performance, and it can't all be driven by the site administrator. Some of it has to be data driven. And so some of it has to be AIMS scores, because that's a requirement that if there's AIMS scores available, that we have to use that as one form of data. The 33% that encompasses the data has to be multiple sources of data. So it has to be at least 2 sources of data. So if that makes any sense, we're going from a 100% teacher performance evaluation instrument to a 67% teacher performance and 33% data. And teacher performance is going to be based on the INTAS standards, which we really even haven't gotten into describing, but there's different, I think there's like 9 areas, Angel, is that right?
It's not too much different, somewhat, but it's not a tremendous difference from what the state has currently adopted. But the idea is that this is kind of something that folks are looking at nationally and moving to national teacher centers. But it's things that you would be familiar with already, like looking at classroom instruction, looking at the methodologies, looking at the content knowledge of the folks, and are they able to apply that appropriately with the students that they're working with, looking at their use of data. So it's not tremendously different from the standards that the state had before, but it has some different performance indicators. I'd say that these are probably more detailed, more comprehensive than the ones that the state had used prior to the adoption of these standards.
Since Mrs. Zuniga states that we're going from a 100% teacher performance to now a 33% data and teacher performance. But the school itself, when they give out letter grades, when the community passes a judgment, when we look at a school, isn't there a heavier emphasis on these letter grades on data than there is on performance? And I just want to make sure that there's a correlation, because I don't want schools to get, say, hey, we're doing okay, the evaluations are okay, and then all of a sudden we land up with a C, a D school. Or is there a linkage with that 33%? I understand what you're both saying, but is there some kind of comparison on how the school is going to be judged in comparison to what the teacher performance is in the classroom? Even though there should be a linkage, a statistical linkage, but I think there's more emphasis on the school letter grade with data.
And they're kind of very different things, and there's a lot up in the air with the whole letter grade system right now, and that's kind of like a whole nother board discussion item. Yes, there should be, but that's a very different thing, the evaluating the school, than, yes, the purpose and the reason that they were looking to incorporate some piece of data into the teacher evaluation is to add some accountability there, or what's perceived as more different type, perhaps. I don't know the best way to word that. So certainly there is a linkage, and one way to achieve that is with the changes that were passed in the way the teacher and principal evaluations are done. I still think the fairest thing would be to keep it at the lower percentage that the committee identified while we're developing more assessments like Myra was referring to, and getting our feet wet with the rubrics that we're establishing. I think while we do that I like the weighting, and I think that still adds a significant amount of accountability, but it's fair in the process.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
And if I can add to Dr. Varona's comment, I think that that's where the state is headed. I mean, they do want all school districts to head more towards having everything make sense and work together. So although right now it's a small piece, and although they give the local educational agencies the ability to do whatever you'd like at this point, have the flexibility to establish some kind of a performance evaluation instrument that fits your needs, I think that that's where we're headed. I mean, they're not mandating 50% of it has to be data. They're giving us the opportunity to make it a small amount, 33%. But one of the things that you can use is the legacy labels or the Arizona Learns labels. You can use that as a data piece. So I think, yes, it's a good point that you bring up, Dr. Varona, because all of those things should align. And if we have an A label for a school, most teachers will probably be evaluated as highly effective. That should all make sense. We shouldn't have a school where we're calling every teacher a highly effective teacher if that letter grade is a C. That's where we're headed. So yes, that's a great point. They are correlated. It should fit in at some point that we can see, that building on each other, all pieces building on each other to establish the ultimate outcome, which would be the letter grade. But I think it's baby steps. We're heading there, I think. That's the goal for accountability. At least that's how I see it.
I noticed that that's exactly what it seems to be gearing towards, is you need to have accountability in the schools that align with how the schools are performing in general. If the school is performing poorly, the teachers cannot be highly effective if the school is performing poorly. The correlation of the data doesn't make sense. So this will help to identify those areas using specific data that helps to evaluate the teachers in their performance so that it's not necessarily so subjective.
And to help them grow. And the goal is to make better teachers. So the goal is that if we are seeing teachers that are partially effective or ineffective, that we're helping them develop to become better teachers. It's supposed to be a productive tool, something that will help our district move forward and get the gains academically that we want to see. Any other questions?
I have nothing else, Mr. Chairman.
I have nothing
Anyone
else.
else?
Thank you.
Very good.
The second information and discussion item is the 100th day comparison report.
We'll have Dr. Utney come up, and we did a four-year comparison, sort of give you an idea as to what the enrollment's been looking like. We all know, because you've been hearing it for the last 4 years, that we've had a declining enrollment. This is one item I think we track almost on a weekly basis as to where are we having our attrition rate. It's usually at this time where Mr. Arana wants to know where they're going. We're still trying to figure that out, whether or not they are just going for the jobs they're at, or neighboring districts, whatever the case may be. But still, we all should know that our budget is as a result of our ADM, and we have been losing kids, and give you a sort of a flavor as to how many we're losing over the last 4 years, put it in perspective.
Members of the board, Mr. Zimmerman, you've got a comparison from the 100th day, January 2008 to January 2012. In that period, we lost 246 students. Now, you have to remember that these are my data taken right off of PowerSchool. Excuse me. Not necessarily Carla's data that we use for the specific ADM. And I think you'll have ADM data after March 1st. I think that's what Deanna told me today. Should have it. And we can use that for the precise calculations of, excuse me, precise calculations for the budget. Here, these are rough estimates. When you figure $5,500 or $6,000 per student, we're losing about 50 kids from last year. That's kind of a rough estimate. Overall, you can see we've lost from these calculations, from our highest enrollment in January 2010, 6,098 students, to this year, 5,831. That's a decrease of 267 students. The second page to that, I broke it down into specific schools. You can see over time Coronado has lost over 100 students. Mitchell's lost over 100 students. High school has lost 100 students from that 2008 to the 2012 figure. Some of the highest enrollments at Bracker were in January of 2010, 320 students. This year they had 292. Welty was up to 342 students in that January of 2010. Last month they were 323. So again, there's been some gains in some schools over time. There's been some dramatic losses in time. We can all speculate as to the reason. I understand that Rio Rico is also losing students at an extreme rate. Where are they going? Don't know. Any questions?
I'd like to make a comment. What was the effect of the senior ditch day on the 100th day this year out of the high school?
That was the 100th day. I don't know the impact of that.
How, Mr. Chair, I'm sorry, were you done, Charlie?
Go ahead.
How steadfast is that rule? I mean, it's got to be, one has to think that we can petition the state and allow us to make some type of an adjustment before they would hang us on a 100th day count, which turned out to be a ditch day.
For the senior skip day?
Yeah. Heck, they will allow an adjustment.
There are ways that you can make adjustments to your attendance, chronic illness, widespread illnesses, student walkouts. However, our funding is based on membership, not actual attendance. So if we were to have really bad attendance below the 94% rate, then we are penalized and our funding would be based on average daily attendance. But there was no impact, and we don't predict that it's going to cause a decrease below that 94%.
Thank you.
That's very good to hear.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a comment that I'd like to make as a suggestion, and I don't want Mr. Klapek or Mr. Kramer to take this in the wrong sense, but I understand reading there's a law, and in Tempe Unified School District, I think it's Ahwatukee High School, they're allowed by law to send the Tempe buses 25 miles round trip outside the district, and they go out to Maricopa, and they bring in about 300 students on a daily basis into their campuses, which Maricopa is trying to get the round trip lowered to 15 miles. They've tried for 3 years, and it hasn't been very successful. But now that we're going to be talking about student transportation and something, and this, you're talking about dollars. what we can pay our teachers. And I don't believe, Mr. Zimmerman, I don't believe at all that it has anything to do with the quality of education that's being provided our students. I think it has to do with a great deal with economics that has been happening for the last 3 to 5 years. But it's just something that I make as a suggestion for you to look at, if you want to look at it. But that's something that I saw, you know, everything's getting competitive for students. And if we have to send look at we have a lot of students who come from the Keno Springs area, South River Road, outside of our district, and they get to choose Nogales High School or Patagonia High School. Well, if we put out a bus there, like Patagonia sends their buses there, we put out a bus there, maybe they'll come over here. Just something for you to think about.
Anything else for Dr. Utney?
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to item 6, consent agenda, approval of routine warrants, purchase orders, travel claims, employee leave and transfer requests, and employee resignations. Any matter on the consent agenda will be removed from the consent agenda and discussed as regular agenda items upon the request of any board member. A, ratification of student activities, auxiliary operations vouchers. B, approval of ratification of expense payroll and vouchers. D, approval, acceptance of donation from McDonald's to Lincoln Elementary School, $1,000 to be used for students' field trips and incentives. E, approval, acceptance of donation from McDonald's to Welty Elementary School, $1,000 to be used to support increase of academic skills for students. F, approval, acceptance of donation from McDonald's to Mitchell Elementary School, $1,000 to be used to purchase library books. Approval of award of RFP 1112-01 basic maintenance. Approval of award of RFP 1112-02 DNS servers. I, approval of award of RFP 1112-03 voice over internet protocol. J, approval of award of RFP 1112-04 voice gateways. K, approval of award of RFP 1112-05 wireless LAN. L, approval of Mariachi Apache to attend NSBA conference April.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to question that one.
Which one?
L.
L, okay, L. Conference on April 18, 22nd, 2012. M, approval of 2012-13 school year governing board meeting schedule. N, approval of personnel agenda summary. O, approval of classified schedule. P, approval of volunteers for 2011-12 school year. Q, approval of addenda for 2011-12 school year. So with the removal of item L, approval of Mariachi Apache to attend NSBA conference.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to discuss item N, like
item
N.
N, okay, approval of personnel agenda summary. Okay, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda with item L and item N taken out for the moment?
So moved.
I second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, okay. Item L, approval of Mariachi Apache to attend NSBA conference April 18th to 22nd, 2012.
I'd like to move to approve their attendance.
Is there a second?
I'd like to second.
Discussion. Mr. Morel.
Okay, my discussion is, how many chaperones are we sending to the Mariachi conference? Or as NSBA conference for the Mariachi situation?
Mr. Zimmerman?
Mr. Zimmerman.
8.
8?
Yes, there's a list on 77 and 78, and you'll see them. We list the students first, and then we follow up with, beginning with Alan Aguirre. And I'm just counting, so there would be 8.
Why do we have to send 8 for 18 students that are going, or 18 mariachis that are going?
I can tell you that I have a philosophy of going across the country, and since NSBA is paying for the rooms, I felt that it wasn't a bad idea to send them. I've always believed to take more than less, and I knew this might be an item in terms of the amount of chaperones, but my recommendation is still that we would send these folks. I think there are some people who might have questions as to how we selected them, but we selected them based upon their involvement with the mariachis over the past. For instance, I can tell you that I have Mr. and Mrs. Soto, who've probably been part of the mariachis for the longest time. We have our music director, and that is Dr. Utney. We have a couple individuals, and I want to let you know that though some of these are going, they're funding their own airfare.
They're funding their own air
Yes, for instance, I'll use Ms. Jimenez, who is going to be taking her husband along as a chaperone. He will fund his own, whatever it is he's going to.
How many are funding their own air pass or rooms or whatever? You know, we're in an era that we need money for our teachers, and we need money for everything else. So why do we have to send? You know, I think eight people are too much. There should only be there's 2 sponsors of the Marachis, and maybe we should invite 1 or 2 parents. I think that would be better. And keep the other people here. Why is Mr. Colgate going?
This is a discussion, and you folks can certainly amend it and vote differently, but what I have written here in terms of my recommendation is my recommendation. And I do believe, because maybe it's just that I'm overcautious, but if I'm sending individuals, and I don't care if it's mariachis or anybody else, I want to have chaperones there. I want to make sure that it is a safe trip, and given the fact that NSBA is funding the rooms, and I just don't have a problem with these individuals going, and that's still my recommendation.
Any more discussion?
I'd like to make a comment, Mr. Zimmerman, based on Mr. Morales' comment, is that your student to teacher ratio, I know that you want to take more because they're going, but I just want to make sure that the ratio of student to teacher is the same when they travel, whether they travel to Boston or whether they travel to New Mexico or whether they travel to Tucson. Is that ratio consistent? And I understand the financial part of it. I concur with Mr. Morales on that, but I took the marching band to Washington, D.C. There was 150 students, and we had a ratio, like I'm sure you have that same ratio right now, 1 to 15, which is I think is a good ratio, 1 to 15 students. You're going right now on a 2 to 1. As long as, is it going to be consistent? Anytime the athletic teams travel, do they have a 2 to 1 ratio? I don't think that they do, but I just want to make sure that there's consistency on there. If this is our policy that we have a 2 to 1 ratio, then we stick to the athletics and the fine arts, a 2 to 1 ratio, elementary, middle school, and high school. As long as we're consistent with that, I don't have a problem with it. But if we're just doing it for an isolated instance, then I just think that 2 to 1 is too much. I'm not trying to second guess you. I'm just trying to bring out, I don't care to talk about individuals. All I'm here to say is, are we consistent with our student to teacher supervision ratio? That's all I'm saying. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Marshall. Mr. Chair, I am not understanding who's paying for what.
Okay.
You need to please describe that to me. NSBA, is that the Band Booster Association? Is it the school's money?
Let me answer the question. I think I know which one.
Yep.
First of all, NSBA is funding 10 rooms.
Who's NSBA?
National School Board Association.
Okay.
For how many nights?
For 2 nights.
2 nights.
The air is, as we discussed when we were going out for, when we were getting pre-approval a couple of months ago before we even embarked on this, actually it's been a few months, that it was an understanding that the air would be funded by the district. The meals would be funded by the district.
That's right.
And there was discussion with a meeting that I had in terms of spending money and if they wanted to go on excursions and things of that nature. And I felt that that would be something that would have to come from the individuals. They want to buy souvenirs, then they'll have to come up with their monies. The question that was asked that from Mr. Morales is who's funding. They're paying for 10 rooms. That would pay for everybody that you see on your list. The only individual that's paying air at this time is David Jimenez. Everything else is as I just stated. The rooms are paid for. Mr. Jimenez will be responsible for his own meals. Basically, he's just somebody who's tagging along and taking his own time off to do that.
Well, I'm sorry, Hector.
How much is the airfare? I mean, I don't know, you can fly across the country for some instances a couple $100, sometimes a couple $1,000.
It's just, I'm saying it was 320, you're saying it's under 300, but it's I believe it's right around 320. If you think it was under 300, maybe with taxes, but it was about 300-ish.
So 320 times 26 people going?
Yeah.
18 students, 8 chaperones?
Well, yeah, well, 7 minus the David
25.
Jimenez.
Yeah. 8,000 bucks.
And Carla, what's our funding source? Because we're not taking it out of capital or M&O, but what is our funding source? Yeah, go up there because I don't think they can hear you in the.
It's a grant.
That matters too.
It does matter because
If it's a
I
grant
tell you
versus
I'm not somebody that tends to try to use any M&O or capital. If I can find a way to do it without getting into the M&O side or the capital side, then we try to do that.
Yes, and I made that commitment to Mr. Zimmerman that we would stay away from the general fund. And we do have monies available in a National Endowment of the Arts grant. And those are monies that were left over from prior years. And we felt that within the amount that was in the grant, we would be able to afford the airfare, the meals, and the additional lodging that would be needed.
I'm sorry, Mr. Arana, did you finish?
I'm done, yes,
thank you. Mr. Chairman, may I just want to restate Superintendent Zimmerman. I'm in favor of us paying for this trip for the kids, and it's wonderful that they're going over there. The only thing I'm questioning along, I can see with Mr. Morales, is just that student-to-teacher supervising ratio. Is it consistent district-wide for every time they take a trip? That's all I want to say as being consistent. Who you pick, that's your business. I just want to make sure if the Mariachis go to New Mexico to go to their festival, it's going to be a 2-to-1 ratio. The athletes go, the elementaries go, it's a 2-to-1 ratio if they stay overnight. That's all. If that's what it is, fine. That's all, Mr. Chairman. I'm ready to move on this subject.
Well, something tells me it's not a, why for this event do you have such a higher ratio of chaperones, et cetera, to students than you would for other excursions?
Let me take the first comment. I want to address the comment about policy. There isn't a policy. One of those reasons is why I'm putting a policy committee together, because it seems that we've been all over the place. I know my first couple weeks on the job, you had an issue that was happening in the spring with a trip that was going somewhere up north. You had to turn around, and it could have been prevented if you would have had a better ratio. And I don't know what the ratio was at that time. All I know, my experience leads me to be a little more cautious, especially going across the country. Will it be consistent? As consistent as we can be, and given the same variables, because you also have some other funding sources that are coming from the National School Board Association that you may not get if you were going to Las Cruces for mariachis, but we will do our best. I put this down here. If you folks want to amend it, then so be it. We can do that. That's why we're having it down here. I understand that there's a support for it. If there's a little piece in here that you're not really agreeing with, then make that known in the motion, and we'll act on the wishes of the board.
Yeah. I just don't, Mr. Superintendent, Mr. Chairman, as a board member, Superintendent Zimmerman, I don't want to be put in that position to be amending. I think that has to come from you to us. You know, I'm here to support you. I have some concerns, I'm stating it, but I'm not here to go ahead and micromanage or anything like that. I'm here to just state my opinion. So for future, for your policies, development as you're working with, I'm not here to second guess you, and I don't like to be put in that position.
Thank you.
Mr. Zimmerman.
And I'm just looking out for pennies. We got to save pennies.
I appreciate it. No, believe me, I have no problem with how you are going to vote on this. If you want to make some modifications to your motion, so be it, and we'll just move accordingly.
Well, I feel apparently the money's coming from NSBA, the National School Board Association, and it's coming from a National Endowment of the Arts grants. None of this is M&O money?
None.
This is I guess this is really going to cast Nogales as a bright, shining star, and I have a feeling that might be one reason why there might be some more chaperones. It is a very big deal, and it is all the way across the country. I think it is a different set of circumstances than going to New Mexico, and so I have a feeling that might be why that plays into the decision. But
also, to be in full disclosure, part of the things that we were talking about as we were moving forward on this was the issue of uniforms. And I'll tell you that Mr. Colgate has a 3-year replacement cycle for the athletics and cheers and everybody else. This group hasn't had it in 5 to 7 years, thereabouts. And if you take a look at their uniforms, buttons are falling off, they're ripped, and we are moving forward with the same endowment because they need some uniforms. And though the timing it might be the appearance might be, well, they're also getting new uniforms. Well, they haven't had anything in 7 years, but nobody else is complaining. I just wanted to have full disclosure to this board that's an expense as well. Yes. And just so you know, because I want to say, well, they forgot to mention this, and I just wanted to make sure that you understand that as well.
Well, I'm glad that you got the new uniforms. I'm surprised you're not staying consistent on a 3-year cycle for the Mariachis, though, too, because they deserve to be on that same cycle as everybody else. Mr. Chairman, I'm ready to move forward on this issue. I think we've made the point of our concerns.
Yes, we have.
So no more discussion? All in favor of approval of Mariachi Apache to attend NSBA conference on April 18th through 22nd, 2012, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Now to item N, approval of personnel agenda summary. Entertain a motion?
Move to approve.
Second.
Any discussion?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. I have just a question on number 6, all on-call employees. When I saw that on-call employees, there was 2 of them there, I thought Superintendent Zimmerman and Mrs. Zuniga that in our last budget that we approved, we eliminated, because of finances, we eliminated all on-call. You said you weren't going to have any more on-call people. And now I see that it's on there, and we eliminated, I think, 1 or 2 individuals who were on-call people, and those people who were eliminated, who lost their job, were they given the opportunity to come back to be on-call employees? Or I just want to make sure that they were treated fairly. The ones that were left out because of budget cuts as being on-call, I don't know who these people are here, but was that person or persons, were they given the opportunity, first choice, to come back? That's my question.
The first part, Dr. Varona, I can't really answer about people that were off the on-call list, were they given an opportunity to come back on the on-call list? I know that on-call employees are used very minimally. So I just wanted you to know that all that this does, it establishes a pool of available resources for the district to use, only in the case where someone is absent or ill. So we only use that on an as-needed basis. We use custodial services only on an on-call basis, and then also substitutes are considered on-call. And the substitute finder does that. The first part of the question I can't answer. I don't know if Mr. Zimmerman can help me with that, or if Ms. Soto or someone can help me with that.
Let me remind the board. The on-call for several years was not really on call. People were showing up every day as if it was a full-time position. There was no calling as if they were sub. They came every day and were treated like they were employees. And it equated to a massive amount of money. We were a little concerned because if they're going to be if they're going to be there on a full-time basis, they would be entitled to benefits. And that never happened either. So what we took before the board, and it was largely in the maintenance department. In terms of the custodian, and Ms. Zuniga mentions that we basically use them sparingly. When a substitute, or when a custodian calls in, if someone called in sick today, we don't necessarily call these people up. It's more long-term. If they were going to go out for a month, FMLA, or whatever the reason is, that is what they're used for, and the amount of money is really insignificant. In comparison to when we made the budgetary cuts, we were talking up into the $50,000, $60,000. Two of those individuals were getting paid probably close to about $80,000, $90,000. I don't have that in front of me, but I remember when we did our first year, when we were taking a look at the menu items of all the potential cuts we were thinking about given to the governing board, that stood out. And it stood out because on-call was not being used for its intended purpose. So this is an on-call based for a long-term need. So if there's a substitute that is needed because someone at Challenger is leaving for 2 weeks, then we'll address it. If it's because a substitute or somebody was gone for a day or two, then the other substitutes have to sort of chip in and handle that and make do. And that is what the intention for this is. And we've had turnover in that area. Right. Now, I don't know about the second part of Dr. Verona's question in terms of did we call other individuals back. I don't know what the procedure was for calling individuals back and giving them that opportunity.
I'm Superintendent, Mr. Chairman, Superintendent Zimmerman. I'm just looking to make sure that we as a district stay consistent. If we laid these people off because of budgetary concerns, did you at least tell them, hey, we have these 2 positions open, they're available since we laid you off, you have first crack at it? If they say no, because it's like you say, Superintendent, there's a change in pay, now it's just minimal, where practice used to be consistent, showing up every day, that's something. I just want to make sure that we're consistent and these employees had the opportunity to say yes or no. That's all that I'm looking at, because I remember it was cost-cutting measures, and now, as long as they're treated, we're consistent. I don't have a problem. I'm just asking, are we consistent?
And just to remind the governing board that over the last 4 years, the 3 years, the cuts we've made, we have really not cut much in the support service areas. What it is, it's been largely the attrition rate amongst the certificated administration last year. And the reason why we had to do that is our classified tend to be people who are rooted here. They tend to stay here. So we haven't really cut back significantly in any of those areas.
And one thing that I can add is just that that's coming to mind as I'm answering this question is that we did have some attrition for the on-call custodian employees, and that's why we have additional names on the board agenda, because for the same fact that we're using them very little, some of the on-call custodians decided to resign their employment with Nogales Unified School District as on-callers. One of the reasons why is because some of them, because of those previous things that were happening with people coming to work every day and not really being used on call, they had accumulated state retirement system benefits. So when they left their service with Nogales Unified School District, then they can draw their state retirement system contributions, and some of them were in need of that. So they left their employment, and so we no longer have them as a resource to tap into. So that's why we're coming to you to add some additional people to that list so that we have available resources when we're in need of that.
And good evening. If I may add a little bit on that, and the principals are here. The question that you brought up, Dr. Barona, the last time is that we did eliminate the on-call for the maintenance department, and that was approved. And we did have a recent retirement. That position has not been filled. We did not open it up. We're following up with that approval that happened early in the spring. Following up with the regular custodians, though, we left that on-call to assist the principals when we have a custodian that's been gone 3 or 4 days, long-term sickness. So then we send one of these custodians to go and assist the schools. We lost some of these people for the reasons stated, so we're trying to make sure that we have some in the bank so we can assist the schools. For right now, we have 2 employees who have not been working for the maintenance department. We're doing with what we have, and we're making adjustments there. The workers are carrying over some other additional responsibilities. But at this time, we do have 2 employees who are not reporting to work due to illness, and we have not reported. We are not filling in those vacancies right now at this time. So we are doing with what we have as best as possible, but that just one area is the need to make sure that our schools are kept up, and some of the head custodians do help us, but also to avoid doing overtime, we do have this in place to assist us during that time. I just wanted to add that.
Mr. Chairman, thank you.
Just real quick, Mr. Chair, just so I'm clear, you're not hiring anyone. You're just creating a pool of people that are available to do part-time work when needed to cover when we have the need.
That's what I understood.
Thank you.
No more discussion?
No, I got my answer.
All in favor of approval of personnel agenda summary, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item 7, executive session. I feel we do need to go to executive session tonight. Pardon?
Make a motion.
Make a motion?
I move to convene to executive session pursuant to ARS 38-431-03A1.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Sorry.
Executive session is done. Entertain a motion to reconvene.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, item 9, action items. Item A, approval of 2012-2013 school year calendar.
In front of you, you will find the school calendar. We didn't want to throw you a jump ball and give you 3-4 different versions. I tell you what we did is we included the administrative team for their input. It is very much like last year's. We were able to get a little information, not from all the districts, because sometimes we like to be able to sort of match calendars. You know, we're a bedroom, Rio Rico's a bedroom community. We try to match up the breaks. They do a little something different, and for their fall break, they have an extended Thanksgiving break. So, but the spring break is the same. The Christmas break's the same as Rio Rico. It adds up to 180 days, nothing significantly different than last year.
I have a question.
Sure.
I know that the community was a little perturbed that after the Christmas break this year, the first day of school back was testing for Galileo, and that made it where some parents weren't back from vacation or holiday or whatever, and we had a lot of kids absent. I noticed that it doesn't give those test dates on this calendar, but it,
And we didn't have Galileo, not to my
it was some type of-
understanding.
it was some
Did-
type of
Was it
test
the
date
first
that was-
week?
It was the first day back. It was a pre-test? Oh, okay, because I was under the impression it was the actual test. and-
Initially, one of the things came out as way the calendar fall. If you recall the dialogue last year, is we even thought about going Wednesday to Wednesday, but we didn't think that would be good for attendance. We thought about just having the Christmas break fall the week before, but when it was all said and done, we actually had a lot of positive comments that Christmas sort of got over that first weekend, and then the next 2 weeks was actually a little bit better. But it doesn't fall exactly that way this year, where there are a few days before Christmas this time instead of the next day. So, but we'll be mindful to that. But I also heard that the attendance was good too, because we were trying to figure out whether or not there would be a problem with it, and the attendance was good.
Mr. Chairman, Superintendent Zimmerman, the only question that I have, thank you for publishing it in the newspaper this year, because last year it wasn't. Any parental concerns? Any calls from parents or anything like that?
None.
I'm okay with it, as long as it's advertised and everybody knows, everybody got the...
You know, when the calendar comes, there always will be a few that, there were some people who didn't like this year's calendar because some had something to do with some employment type of an issue. Fernando, do you recall what that was? And that was the only concern we had from last year's, but this calendar isn't any different.
The concern was actually the attendance and how we would have the attendance coming back, since we haven't had a calendar like this. And actually, Ms. Soto went back and did an evaluation of past years, and this year's was the best attendance that we've had from all the years, actually. So, and that's from every elementary, middle schools, both high schools, the Pearson Vocational and Nogales High School. So, and that was about it.
I'm just glad to see it's not a Mayan calendar. It doesn't stop on the 21st.
And I noticed that, you know, you actually have a positive projection here that the world will continue.
I like it.
Yeah.
Any more discussion? All in favor of approving 2012-2013 school year calendar, say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Item B, approval of resolution to procure energy performance service. Mr. Zimmerman.
Fernando, would you like to take that, or Carla? One of you two are going to take that. That is the RFP, the resolution to procure the energy. Okay.
We are recommending to use the request for proposal process to acquire energy performance services for our school district. The proposals would include the cost of the contract, the energy and operational cost savings, and the net projected energy savings. We want to be able to procure the most advantageous proposal, you know, for our school district. So as part of the procurement regulations, it also allows us to use this process for acquiring these services as well. So the recommendation is that you approve the resolution and authorize us to move forward with the procurement process as suggested.
So moved, Mr. Chair.
Is there a second?
Second?
Any discussion? No discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Nay, no. Okay, item, was that C or 3 I'm looking for here? Approval of superintendent's contract. I've been instructed by the board to verbally state that we would like to extend Mr. Zimmerman's contract 1 year. There are certain items that we need to get straight with the lawyers, et cetera, but just to let the public know, we do want you here for another year, and I think it's important for the public to know that as well as you instead. Does the board have anything they'd like to add to that?
No, Mr. Chairman, I think you've echoed our concerns.
So you'll have a contract that you'll bring to the board to review at the next board meeting?
At the next board meeting. I'll work with our attorneys, et cetera. All right. Governing board future request, Marcy?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, there's been an item that happened on our local radio station by the, and I want to approach this in a positive. And I don't want anybody to misconstrue, and I don't want the community to misconstrue what I'm saying. I'm trying to look at this as a very positive that we can work at together. We have a good working relationships that I've been observant of between the superintendent and the assistant superintendent and the Santa Cruz County attorney. And on this radio talk show, which I want to say up front, I did not listen to it, but I received numerous calls about this. There was a lot of calls, and he too was critical of things that are happening from the administration of Nogales High School and our district administration. And that we're turning our backs at some physical confrontations at some place that, of all the years I've been there, and I don't know where Happy Hill is, but they refer to this Happy Hill. And that we're turning our backs on that, physical confrontations among students where they take off the campus, and on drugs, some things. And I would just like to put it down on the agenda so that we can have a dialogue on this. I know that the superintendent is already acting proactively on this. Mr. Parra issued a well-written email to the Santa Cruz County attorney, but he's the chief law enforcement officer of our county, and I want to make sure that we have working relationships and that we clear up these, in my opinion, a lot of misconceptions about the things that are happening in our schools. And if I'm wrong, well, I'll guide myself from you, Mr. Zimmerman. But I would like to see that placed on the agenda so we can see what the superintendent has to say and what's going on, so that people don't get a misrepresentation on a talk show of what is exactly happening in our schools. And I thank you, Mr. Zimmerman, for approaching this proactively with Mr. Silva on this, but I think that the community should know what else is going on. And I would like to request that that item be placed on the agenda, Mr.
The Happy Hill.
Got it.
And also, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Klepek, I would like Mr. Zimmerman for us to host the ASBA County Workshop, if you could put that on the agenda. And not for the next meeting, Mr. Chairman, but I would like to discuss this JTEC, what Mr. Kramer was alluding to, and how we can give some opportunities for our kids there with this, with these monies. What is the program? How do we get the funding for it? So that we know, so we can make a decision on that. When you're ready on that, Mr. Chairman and Mr. Zimmerman, it doesn't have to be for the next meeting. The only thing I'm asking for the next meetings is this thing on Mr. Silva and ASBA County Workshop. And the thing with Mr. Silva, please, let's stay positive. Let's not get into, it's something positive. How can we work together? How can we get better? Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Frank, any other?
No, I have none.
Is there a motion to adjourn the meeting?
I make a motion to adjourn.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Hold on, Marcia.